Hello, my name is Daniel Ambrose. I am pretty excited to contribute to our district's professional learning today. Um, Today, I really wanted to talk about something that is pretty vital for our students' success when we talk about English language learner students. When we shift how we look at them, a lot of the time we'll talk about our English learners as if knowing a second language or not having English be their native language as a setback. Um, this is a pretty common misconception that rather than looking at it as a positive, we look at it as a deficit. We look at it in the eyes of a deficit based model. Um, the shift is where we start looking at it as an asset rather than something that's taking away from them. Because to look at these kids who come from maybe our own communities, maybe from other communities around the world, they have to take in so much more information than us native English language speakers. So let me scroll my notes. Sorry about this. Um, Instead of looking at these kids and seeing what they don't have, we want to look at what unique cultural and linguistic, uh, what we like to call funds of knowledge they have. How can we use those funds to close the inequity gap that we see with a lot of our English language learners? Excuse me. So we have to take into account the role of their culture, right? Um, it's not just about how we all eat different foods, or we celebrate different holidays. Culture is what makes up how the wheels turn in a student's head. It makes up how they look at situations, how they respond to instruction, how they respond to teachers, authority figures. It makes up the DNA of who they are. It's not just the food, even though the food is really a big part. Um, so it influences how our students process their information. If they're comfortable looking you in the eye, if they like to collaborate, or if they like to do things solo. Um, Cultural competence is another idea that is put on us. Is we have to have the ability to understand all of these little things that make up this very large group, this very diverse group that will make up our student body. Not everyone's going to be the same, and we have to be able to look at all of these little bitty pieces to make sure that we're servicing every student to the best of our abilities. We want to make sure that we adjust how we instruct to help these students succeed. Um, to put a bridge between their home and when they're at school with us. One of the big ones that we can do, sorry, I'm looking down at my notes, is we can use the home language. We can leverage it. We can encourage students to use their native language to help brainstorm ideas, because it's probably, no, it's not probably, it's easier to think in a language that you know. It would probably be hard for me to go to France and try to brainstorm with some French people how to do a group project. It would be easier for me to talk out loud to myself. Um, we can also encourage them to use their native language in peer discussions. What I really like about that is rather than have them feel odd or ostracized because they may not have a firm grasp on English, it allows them to really feel their identity. And that identity is important for these students. It's important for them to know themselves. Um, Sorry, I'm looking through my notes. We can do a method that I found called the mirror and the window. We can make sure that our curriculum is a mirror where the EL students see their own culture in the literature and in the history. So we talk about not just one sect, but we talk about their particular culture. It's a really great way for them to invest and buy into the things we're teaching them. So how are we going to support that? Our EL kids, they're not just one, right? So we have students with interrupted formal education, long-term ELs, twice exceptional learners who might have special needs, and this requires differentiation. Students might have IEPs, they might have EL designations. We want to make sure that we manage how we have goals for their language and how we accommodate those disabilities. We have to make sure that the social emotional is happening well. We make sure we identify kids who might be in a culture shock if they're just newcomers. We want to do that through establishing routines, checking in with our students, use nonverbal check-ins if they're unable to verbally tell us how we're doing. Thumbs up, thumbs down, give them the fist bump. There's lots of ways that we can check in with our EL students. And one of the biggest ones is we make a connection with their home. Using, again, that thing that I call the fund of knowledge, which tells us that they bring a wealth of information to us from their cultures. We can do this through homework that is interactive, where students can talk to family members who fund that wealth of knowledge. Maybe people who have different types of jobs. They aren't working in an office all day. Maybe they are working with their hands. Maybe they own a restaurant. Maybe they work on farms. I'm just thinking of my own experience as a man who's Hispanic, and a lot of what my family did. Inclusive communication. We need to be beyond translation. We need to make sure that our communication home is culturally sensitive to those students and accessible. We could do something as cool as walking through our community. How often do you go and walk around the school where you work? I know we all drive there. How often do you go walk up and down the street and see the people who are actually coming to your schools? I really love this idea because, it gets you out of the room for a little bit, and you get to see who these people really are. You get to see their neighborhoods, you get to see their houses. I really love this idea of asset-based mindset. It's not a barrier. It's a bridge that helps our students come from home, valuing their culture, and it just doesn't help them learn how to speak English. It helps them become these wonderfully confident, high-achieving, wonderful people. It's really a beautiful thing to see when we get to be a part of it. Thank you.